Voter Service. Board Member Mary Schaefer is timekeeper. Board Member and Secretary Barbara Welsh and I will collect any written questions that you may have, perhaps written out in the first half hour so that we can collect them and read them. I will now turn the forum over to our moderator, Gayla McCluskey.
Thank you, Jillian. Bless you, whoever sneezed. I'm Gayla McCluskey, Voter Service Chair of the Radnor League of Women Voters for many years, and I want to add my welcome to all of you, particularly the candidates, for joining us this evening. And if all of us could rise and pledge allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. And unfortunately, in today's age, I need to ask everybody to please silence their cell phones as we move forward. I'd like to remind everybody of some important dates. The last day to register to vote is Monday, the 23rd. The last day to request a mail-in or an absentee ballot is October the 31st. And of course, we know that Election Day, the general election, will be on November the 7th. And I'd like to encourage anybody that's watching us tonight or is with us tonight to go to vote411.org. It has a plethora of information on the various candidates that are running statewide and local for the various spots. And it also has the same information on registering and mail-in information. The forum tonight is being taped and will be shown on the League's YouTube channel. It will also be shown on Mainline Television Network. I don't suppose there's anyone sitting up there that's planning on buying a commercial. But if anybody would choose to use a portion of this in a Facebook or any other type of post, we ask that you use the entire forum, not just a piece of it. And we'll be looking for that. I do want to thank Jackie Henley. Wave your hand, Jackie. Jackie's with the school district, and she is our videographer for the evening. And so we thank her very much for that. The first thing I would like to do is thank Howard Gartland and George Beatty. Hi, Howard. And George unfortunately couldn't be with us tonight. I think he had a wedding that he needed to attend. But they are our local township Democratic and Republican chairs. They've been instrumental in helping us pull this together, and again, we thank you for that. I would like now to introduce, to you the candidates. As you can see, they're seated in alphabetical order. It is school board, by the way. So our first candidate is Liz Duffy. Our next is Cheryl Gibson. Our third is Clare Girton. And we have, I think, for the first time, at least in my memory, a husband and wife that are running. They are Christopher Grupp. And raise your hand, Christopher, because it's all very confusing about which one's which when you see their first names. And would you prefer to be Miss Grupp or Mrs. Grupp? Or do you care? She doesn't care, Miss Grupp. Kyle Grupp. We have Jannie Lau. Beth Murray. Massey. Sorry, Massey. This is my handwriting. Okay. My handwriting would flunk 6th grade. We have Lon Rosenblum. And finally, we have DJ Thornton. And we'd like to welcome every one of you this evening. And now I'd like to explain the order of the night, and I'll start by saying we do accept questions from the audience. We have Jillian and, is it Barb? And, no, it's Barbara. That will be collecting them during the first 30 minutes. Obviously, no questions can be directed towards a single candidate. They cannot be directed towards a single party. They have to be questions that are directed to all the candidates in the room. They will all be screened before I ever see them, and obviously before they're asked. But we do welcome questions from the audience. And I would also like to thank Roberta Winters, since I see Dr. Winters sitting there, for providing with some league questions that we'll have shortly. Forgive me, the questions are on my phone, and that's the only reason it's beeping here. The order of the evening is each candidate will give a 1-minute opening statement. We'll start alphabetically. We'll progress around the room, and my apologies to you, Mr. Thornton, because there are 9 candidates and there are expected to be 8 opportunities. You probably will never get to be first. But you'll never be last either. All right. Then we will proceed with questions from the league, and each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer each question. As introduced earlier, we have Mary Schaefer here, who is on the league board, recent retiree from the Philadelphia Inquirer. And she will be holding out various signs to help us speed along the process. And then after we answer the questions, each candidate will then have an opportunity to give a 1-minute closing statement. And don't worry, I will give you time to prepare for that. So that is going to be the order of the evening. And let's see, did I forget anything? I do not think so. So now we will start with the first question. We'll start with Ms. Duffy.
Excuse me, aren't we having opening statements?
I
No?
beg your pardon. Yep, sorry, I'm a little disorganized. Please, would you please give us your opening statement?
Sure. My name is Liz Duffy, and I'm currently in my 4th year of board service. I'm running to continue my public service and to see the good work of the district continue to evolve. I am passionate about public education, as it is a bedrock of our democracy. My husband and I have 4 Radnor-educated children. We are grateful for the quality of their education and to live in a community whose public schools are thriving. But the excellence of our school doesn't happen by accident. In addition to being well-funded, great schools are the result of skilled leadership and board governance, as well as the collaboration of our administrators, teachers, staff, community, and students. I've served on the curriculum policy, facilities, and government relations committees, as well as with the PA School Board Association and the Radnor Educational Foundation and the Radnor Better Chance House. I care deeply about good governance, academic excellence, and creating a positive school environment in which every child feels a sense of belonging so they can learn and thrive. I hope to have the opportunity to continue to demonstrate these commitments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And on to Ms. Gibson. Yes, just press it.
Hi, I have 5 sons and a daughter, all of whom are graduates of the Radnor school system. Currently also have 6 grandchildren living in the district. The oldest is in the 2nd grade at Radnor Elementary, and the others are just waiting to get started when they're old enough. My husband and I have lived in Radnor for over 35 years, and for a large portion of that time, we have used the public schools. However, there are times when we did not, and a good number of years at this point. So I do understand the perspective of those who live in the district, don't use the schools, and expect school board members to be fiscally conservative. I taught for 22 years in the Springfield school system. I taught 2nd, 3rd, and 5th grade, primarily 5th, in both the elementary and middle school setting. And I am a Radnor School Board tenured member. Prior to teaching, I was on the Radnor School Board. At the time when the high school was being renovated, there was a large addition being put on. We were talking about where to put Radnor Elementary, and we were just beginning to talk about the middle school. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Girton?
Good evening, everybody. I'm Clare Girton, and it is really an honor to be here tonight as part of this forum. Thank you, League of Women Voters, for gathering the school board candidates, all of us, and for the chance for each of us to share a little bit about ourselves and our priorities and respond to your questions. I often say, and I say it out loud, that I'm a Radnor file. I love all things Radnor, and at the center of that is our schools. I have been seen in this town raising my hand to volunteer wherever I can, be it in Parks and Rec or in kids' activities, wherever I can to help support the well-being and the accessibility for all residents in Radnor. My decision to run for school board stems from the deep gratitude that my husband Darren and I feel toward our experience of raising and sending all 4 of our children to Radnor schools. I care deeply about that. Those successes of children, I really like children, I have to say, of children, are seated in belonging. And thanks to the current leadership of Dr. Batchelor and his team and the sound governance of this current school board, Radnor schools are out front leading the way. It's my sincere hope that I'm able to serve as part of this current excellent team.
Thank you very much. Mr. Grupp?
Good evening. My name is Chris Grupp. I'd like to thank the League of Women's Voters for having us here, and also the potential board members. The reason myself, and I'm going to speak for my wife too, we want to be involved. We want to be involved in our children's future within the school. Being a small business owner and an engineer, I think that my previous experiences can bring another level to the board and the school system with all the expansion that's going on. And I look forward to speaking with you guys tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Grupp. Ms. Grupp?
Good night. My name is Kyle Grupp, and I would like to thank everyone for being here and for having us. We moved to Radnor 6 years ago when our youngest was born, and I think that my position as a potential board member is important because I'm coming from a small business owner, a female-owned business in a maritime industry, and I understand what customers are. And as school board members, we have very different customers. We have the students, we have the faculty, we have the residents, and we have to answer to all of those. And I think that's something that we all have to remember, especially with the upcoming renovation on Ithan, and how that's going to affect everyone in the community, not just the students, not just the taxpayers, but all. And that is what I have to say.
Thank you. Ms. Lau?
Hi, everyone. My name is Jannie Lau, and my husband Todd and I have 2 children who have attended Radnor School since kindergarten. I'm running because I believe in the power of an American education. You see, I did not have the good fortune of being born in the United States. I was born in Hong Kong when it was still a British colony. However, my father worked in the airline industry, so we lived all over the world, wherever his job took us. And I ended up at a school run by American expats in Saudi Arabia, of all places. My teachers there taught me not just English, but also the values that underpin American democracy. I wanted nothing more than to grow up to be an American. So I moved here by myself when I was 15 to attend high school, then college at Columbia, and eventually law school at Penn. My dream came true, and there is no place I'd rather be than right here in Radnor. I would be honored to serve this community and my adoptive country, which has given me so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Massey?
Good evening. My name is Beth Massey, and this would be my first attempt at being on a school board. I'm originally from Rochester, New York. We've been Radnor residents since 2016. I'm a graduate from Alfred University and University of Rochester, and I'm a retired nurse practitioner. I'm married with 1 daughter. She's currently in private school at Sacred Heart Academy. We chose that for, I wanted some religious, influence in her education. I am committed to, I'm goal-driven, dedicated to accountability, committed to excellence in education. I believe together parents and educators should strive to cultivate virtue, wisdom, and the character of our youth. I pledge to develop a collaborative relationship with leaders and staff and teachers and parents, promote effective communication and fiscal responsibility that aligns with all of our standards and views and achievable outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Rosenblum?
Hi. Thank you to, thank you to the League of Women Voters for giving us this opportunity. We value what you do. We value your work and what you do in our community. I'm Lon Rosenblum, and I'm a proud parent of 4 Radnor-educated children who are currently 18 to 24. My husband, Jeff, and I are grateful to have lived in Radnor for 22 years, where we've had the gift of a phenomenal school district. I feel I am well-suited to being a school director for many reasons, including that I have financial acumen from my accounting and finance background. And I enjoy and am committed to collaboration. I've also consistently volunteered for the past 15 years in many different leadership roles in our school district, including PTOs, booster clubs, and district committees. My experiences offer a broad perspective of the challenges and successes of numerous families in our community, and so it became my passion to help create an environment where students felt safe, where they belonged, and where they found joy, which research shows ultimately supports students' achievement. I've been thrilled to watch Radnor's evolving leadership in the educational space, and I'd love to be part of a governing team that fosters ongoing progress for our students and community.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thornton.
Good evening. My name is DJ Thornton. I'm a father of 2, Charlie, class of 2023, and Maya, class of 2028. I'm a Garrett Hill neighborhood resident and an active community volunteer. I've coached the Wayne Wildcats and later served on the board for the Wayne Wildcats. Professionally, I'm the VP of Development and Strategic Partnerships for the Urban Affairs Coalition, which focuses on economic development and community development in the city of Philadelphia. I hold a BA in psychology from the University of Virginia and an MBA from St. Joseph's University. I'm proud to live in the #1 rated school district in PA, and I believe in the power of public education. On behalf of the entire Democratic slate, I would thank you for the opportunity to share our qualifications and answer your questions, and we are invested, engaged, and ready to serve. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Ms. Duffy, for reminding me I skipped the opening statements. We're going to now move on into questions from the league, and we will begin with Ms. Gibson. The first question is, textbooks and coursework have become increasingly politicized. Whom do you believe is best suited to choose the materials and programs that are taught in our public schools, and why?
Okay, easy first question. I have been on curriculum committees as a product of being a teacher, and the process we use, which I believe is fairly standard, is that it's standard-driven, which of course that derives from the state, and it's a process. So I believe that that's a system that works. I mean, teachers sitting in a room looking at standards, that was the process we used in my district, and we would look for the best materials. So I don't see why that process would come to question. I saw it work well. I know there are times when there are materials that are challenged, and I think that's healthy because education has to be fluid. And I think there's a process to analyze materials if decisions have been made that aren't quite appropriate or that need to be tweaked or adjusted in some way. But the idea of having teachers look at it, curriculum committees, curriculum directors, that's why we have such people in place. Yeah.
Thank you. Ms. Girton.
I also was a teacher in my early days for 7 years in the Haverford School District, and I remember those days where we would talk about standards were actually just coming into place in those early 80s. In the 80s. But in this current climate of curriculum, we've had the privilege as candidates, the Democratic slate, to sit in on curriculum meetings and school board meetings, and it is impressive of what this Dr. Batchelor and his team and their teachers and the administration have worked on and put together and are at the forefront of curriculum and are constantly challenging that. Just this past week, we were listening and they had a survey of questioning students, teachers, residents, everybody on the curriculum and the feedback and being put into good use for the future. So I'm really proud and pleased to see that Radnor is already at the forefront of that, and I'm looking forward to being part of that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Grupp.
As was just been stated, the directive for curriculum comes from the state, or at least the standard. I know Radnor changed math curriculum recently, the past couple of years, but to speak, I know where this question comes from. There's been news stories about outrageous things. If something like that comes up, parent, teacher, student should be able to bring that to the board or bring that to the superintendent, principal, and that should be discussed. If there's something that outrageous, excuse me, in the curriculum, that needs to be addressed. But I think by Radnor standards right now, I don't see an issue.
Thank you very much. Ms. Grupp?
As Chris said, we have a second grader and a first grader. So this is our second year of dealing with first grade math. So we've seen the implement of the new math curriculum, and it is surprisingly different year after year. What my now second grader learned and how he learned it versus how my first graders learn it now, night and day. So I do think that Radnor is very good at finding the curriculum and sticking with it, but there does need to be some room and a venue to the school board and work their way up where they can identify anything that is out of the ordinary for what is expected to be in curriculums.
Thank you very much. Ms. Lau?
Well, as a school board member, I would lend a lot of weight to our professional educators whom we hire to do this job. And I think part of being an effective school board is understanding our role, and that is one of oversight. And, we set the strategic direction, we set the vision, but we really do, hire the experts in the area to really do the research and do the day-to-day work and make recommendations to the full board. And I believe this comports with the process that Ms. Gibson referred to. And I really do, I recognize my training is in the law. I'm a lawyer. I'm not a professional educator. And I do think, we are here as representatives of the community, and I would exercise my good judgment in that capacity, and I wouldn't purport to know any better than people who have dedicated their entire lives and careers to do that very job of educating our children. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Massey?
I would like to echo, her point that there are standards we should follow, but that the educators and the professionals, they are the experts, and we are here to sort of oversee their role. I think identifying what our visions are for the district is very important, and are curriculums meeting those goals and those standards, and are we striving for that excellence? So I'd echo those things.
Thank you very much. Ms. Rosenblum?
I would echo Janie's comments as well, but I would also add to that, because of Radnor's track record, we do attract the most talented educators out there. And even with the shortage of educators, we do have a large group of talented candidates for the staffing positions. So in that sense, I think it lies with their expertise. And I also think that the school board functions based on their policies. We have 300 policies out there. And I think when a book is approved or disapproved, it runs through policy. And I think Dr. Batchelor and the staff and administration are doing a great job so far.
Thank you. Mr. Thornton?
I think we all want a dynamic and robust education for our children, and we've invested in leadership and professionals to provide that. I think it's our job to support those professionals.
All right. And finally, Ms. Duffy.
I echo much of what has been said about the process and really relying on the expertise of the of the people, of the educators who we hire, who are of the highest standard. We do have a rigorous process, and we also have a review cycle. In fact, just last Tuesday, we had a curriculum meeting in which new science standards were presented, new state science standards. And then part of the process now is that we will evaluate how we will meet that. And we have a timeline for that. And we will have the teacher input. And like Ms. Lau said, it really is our, I see my role as a school board member is to provide that oversight, to represent the community and ask questions. And when we do have challenges, like Mrs. Rosenblum said, we have a policy, and we have a policy and a procedure for addressing those concerns, and that has played out in recent history. So I think we're lucky to live in a district where we have the staff to give us the recommendations, and then to have policies that support when we have challenges. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I always learn so much from you all, so I do appreciate. I just want you to know that it's both sides. It's not. It may seem to be one way, but it's not really. And so now moving on to the next question, which we will start with Ms. Girton. Many believe that charter schools and a voucher program are needed to improve education. Briefly tell us how you feel about both of these issues.
Okay. First of all, I'm so focused on public education and the standards that public education meet. I think we all are focused on that. And the information on charter schools and magnet schools and all those things are something to be considered. And I would be very open to understanding what that actually is. I think there's a lot of information out there that we don't know about how charter schools are functioning and how that affects our public schools. So I would start with our public board in place, and I would, be welcome to hear any information that would help us understand that process better.
Thank you very much, Mr. Grupp.
I grew up on Long Island, in East Rockaway. The school district wasn't very good where I grew up, so my parents sent me to Catholic school through 8th grade, and I also went to Catholic school all through high school. Parents had to work 2 jobs each to put myself, my brother, my sister in Catholic school. The reason we moved to Radnor, or one of the many reasons, was the public school system. Schools are second to none, right? What's the ranking? 4th best in Pennsylvania? First now? Okay, first best in Pennsylvania. Probably one of the best in America. We are sending our kids to public school. We have no reason not to. But I can see where a taxpayer, a local resident, would want to use their tax money in a voucher program to send their kids to private school. I have no problem addressing that if that comes in the future. I think it's a great idea. We are receiving taxpayer funds. If they want their money allocated differently, I think that should be addressed. I know it's not addressed now. I am way open to that in the future, and I hope everyone else is too, to have that conversation.
I think that Radnor School District is here for the taxpayers and for the students, and that majority of the students do very well in our school district, but every once in a while there's students who need something different. And if they are residents here, they deserve the same opportunity as the students who do well in Radnor. So if it's time to talk about vouchers for charter schools, I think that needs to be discussed, and it needs to be open for conversation. But it has to be There has to be a plan, and there has to be research done, and it can't just be free, open season for everyone.
Thank you. Ms. Lau?
As I mentioned in my opening statement, I believe very strongly in public education. It literally changed my life, and for the better. So just as a general matter, I think public education is worth investing in, and I would support funding public education rather than diverting funds away from it. That being said, I think even in Radnor, we are very privileged. But I understand that even very recently, the current school board considered a petition from Valley Forge Military Academy to convert into a charter school. And from the meetings that I was able to follow along, ultimately, I think our board determined that there were a number of significant deficiencies in that proposal, and that was the reason for their rejection of that proposal. But I could completely, see a different proposal coming before the board. And I can't tell you right now whether I would accept or reject it. I think we would have to consider each proposal on its own merits. And I hope that, I have an open mind and that I would be able to assess each proposal as it's put forth before the board and make a decision that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Massey?
I am the product of public education. I honestly can't speak. I don't really have a solid opinion about it right now. But I believe education is personal, and it's for each family to decide, what is best for their child at the time. I think it's something to discuss and think about and leave options open to consideration.
Thank you very much. Ms. Rosenblum?
State funding of public schools has always been a challenge. And the way I feel about it with the voucher system, I really do feel that funds should remain in the public schools. We have choices in the schools we have many schools that we have choices in our area. But taking funds away from the public schools, I don't think is the answer. I'm willing to and open-minded to learn more about the system, but as it stands now, funding for the public schools, I think is critical.
Thank you. Mr. Thornton?
I also shared earlier that I believe in the power of public education, but I realize every student has his own path, own unique learning styles and needs. But we also, as Jannie had referenced, we know that there may be some issues with charter school applications. There may be quality of education issues, there could be financial issues, there could be structural and facility issues. I think as a board, we're fortunate to have a quality education system in Radnor, and I think it's our focus to continue to provide resources for the Radnor education.
Thank you very much. Ms. Duffy?
Well, first, I believe that every child has the right to a quality education. Public education, though, is held to certain standards that charter and private schools are not, particularly when it relates to special education. And so I think funding is, always a challenge for our schools, and that diverting money is not the answer. But that said, I do recognize that there are some cases in which, and this currently happens, in which, if a student goes to a quality charter school to meet specific needs, that money does follow them. But in general, overall, I am not in support of diverting our funds to unproven and unregulated schools. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Ms. Gibson?
Okay, I have to agree. There are some charter schools, and I'm sure voucher programs that really do serve children. Particularly in the city, I know there are some that are successful. I think the problem is that it's a funding issue. If you could somehow separate the funding from the schools, then charter schools would be a wonderful answer, and vouchers would be wonderful. But if it draws down, if that funding draws down and takes away from the public school system, then obviously no one's really being helped, just a select few. So it's in the funding that I believe charter schools and vouchers become problematic. And if there were a way to separate the funds and keep the one intact while also installing the other, they'd be a wonderful answer in education.
Thank you very much. And now we'll move on to the third question, and we'll start with Mr. Grupp. People complain about school taxes rising. They see seemingly extravagant athletic facilities at the high school and a new elementary school coming soon that is quite impressive. What do you say to taxpayers who would rather see money spent on students and learning than bricks and mortar?
Can I tell you the bad joke first? This is me speaking personally. Being a resident, I think the school taxes are reasonable. I'm comparing it to other areas we lived in, New York, New Jersey, California. I think there is a need for structural improvements within the school district. Whether we went overboard on the athletic facilities, that could be said, and then also the new school at ITHAN. This is where I believe my engineering background, project management, being a small business owner, we can help in facilitating the actual construction of a new facility. For everyone to say that it's outrageous and school taxes are rising, again, my own opinion, I think it's very reasonable.
Thank you. Ms. Grupp?
I think that there is a need for updated schools and, to some extent, athletic facilities. But I think that the cost and the lifetime of the product need to be compared when we're making these decisions. And we need to agree to spend the money like it's our own, because everyone works very hard for their money, and then they pay their taxes, and they want it seen being used for the best value there is, rather than just having the community think it's a blank check and they could just keep rising and increasing the taxes year after year. So I was very interested in joining the school board once I saw the project going on at the high school, and now the talks of ITHAN, because you want to know that the money is being used to get the best value. And that's my feel.
Thank you. Ms. Lau?
I would like to point out that under the current board, under Democratic leadership, the board has actually held the line on tax increases and has come in every year for the past 4 years under the Act 1 index. And for those of you who are not familiar with the Act 1 index, it's kind of the high watermark that is set by the state. And it's a percentage increase of your taxes that school boards are not allowed to go over without going to the voters for a referendum and kind of seeking special permission to go above that index. And actually, for the past 3 years, the school board has come in well below the Act 1 index. And the index is supposed to represent primarily a reflection of wage increases for the past year. So it's really just what our state legislators have determined to be what the market can bear, what taxpayers should reasonably be expected to be able to bear as their tax burden for the ensuing year. With respect to the athletic facilities expenditure, I would like to also point out that that was primarily an initiative to make sure that our school district is in ADA compliance, which is legally required, right? And I think if we're going to spend money to do that, we also wisely made the decision to also make certain other upgrades for the well-being of our students, because we're not just educating their minds, we're educating the entire person, right? We're preparing them for their lives. And I think facilities are also just as critical as books and the curriculum. So for me, it's always a balance of expenditures and what you get, the value you get for the money you spend.
Thank you. Ms. Massey?
So where I came from, my school taxes were about double what they are here, and I couldn't send my child to a public school because we lived in a city, and the education wasn't great in the public system. But I believe that, you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. There's more than just brick and mortar, and it's all got to be together. It's the best way I can say it. So you need to have good physical structures, good environment for the children, and to emotionally be ready to learn and to be successful. So I think that we have to be fiscally responsible with what we're doing, and I agree with, are we using quality materials? Are they going to last? Are things going to be around for 20, 30 years? So I don't think it's just, I believe our taxes are important in supporting our children's education.
Thank you, Ms. Rosenblum.
I echo Ms. Lau's comments. She explained the Act 1 index, and we have fallen below that in the past 3 years. But I also want to say with our budget, a large portion of our budget goes to staffing, and I think that's what's most important to the school board in creating safe environments, critical thinkers in the school, hiring the right staff. So that is the majority of our budget. And when it pertains to the facilities, the wellness project at the high school, it's not just for the high school students. That property over there and that renovation is for students across the school district, starting in the preschool and kindergarten ages. So, and ADA compliance for all the fields, and to make it safe for the audience as well. So that facility I thought was really important in not just activity for the students, but for the well-being of them, for their minds, and not just for the athletes either. I'm a strong believer in activity for the children. So I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thornton.
Well, I think this is another area that we can really be proud of. We referenced the modest raise under Act 1. We've done a tremendous job of building state-of-the-art, first-in-class facilities that provide an environment for our children and our students to learn. And we've done that in a way that's been very cost-effective as much as we possibly can, and really conscious of the expenses. I've watched the current board debate this issue, and they've had some really robust conversation and are very conscious of how to spend their money. And I think the facilities that we have now at the high school are phenomenal. If you haven't seen them, I certainly encourage you to take a look. And I think we're going to see the same thing at Ithan.
Thank you. Ms. Duffy?
I don't think investing in our infrastructure and delivering a quality education and programming is an either-or proposition. We have proven currently that we can do both. We have not cut any programming with the renovations of our high school, or are we planning to with the building of a new Ithan. When I first joined the board, we commissioned a study, a long-term capital plan. So it's been a process, and we looked at all of our buildings and the aging and what capital investments we would need to be putting into those. And that's really where the decision to renovate Ithan came from, is that it was no longer prudent to put good money into an aging infrastructure, and it was time. And it's a process. It's going to be about 5 years, and we have all along the process, we are soliciting community input. I will say that we also, in evidence that we've been fiscally responsible, just recently we were upgraded to the highest Moody bond rating possible, a AAA. And what that means is now we can go borrow money at the most favorable rate. We are one of only 5 districts out of 500 school districts in PA to earn that distinction. So we are being fiscally responsible with our dollars. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gibson?
Yes.
Your name fell down.
Oh. So unknown. There we go. So, all right. I believe I turned the mic on correct? Okay. Again, I believe this is a question of balance. I believe there is a cost attached in not maintaining your facilities, and that line has to be recognized. But that it's also critical that people are that communication is as full as possible, because those people that aren't fully aware sometimes draw conclusions that aren't quite accurate. For instance, there are requirements by the state for every building project, for everything that's done in a school, and there's a lot of cost attached to that. I mean, so those things need to be known in order for people to feel that they are having their money spent judiciously. So again, you want to keep this, I think capital improvements are important. I think you want to keep your facilities state-of-the-art whenever possible, and neglecting a project doesn't help anyone. A good school district behooves everyone as well. Everyone benefits from a school district that's productive and well-maintained.
Thank you, and finally, Ms. Girton.
I would like to echo that we are so proud and grateful for this facilities project that has just been completed this past couple years. In the year 2000, Katie Sampson, who is a Radnor graduate, was paralyzed in a sledding accident at the Willows. And for many years, I served as the director of development on their foundation, on that foundation, the Katie Sampson Foundation, where we held a festival that benefited our entire Radnor community, and many things that happened at that school benefit the Radnor community, and the facilities really serve that. And for many, many years, 10 years, to get Katie on the field, we would have to take her, roll her all the way down to the TD Bank to go into that gate there. So those stands on Enke Field, if you're familiar with Enke, and the stands on Prevost were not ADA accessible. They were not accessible for somebody who was elderly who had trouble, making those stairs. Those facilities improvements were well overdue. Thank goodness this current school board chose to borrow that money to get that bond rating, because now we're going to be spending less because they spent it when they did, rather than waiting for the interest to go up, 15%, whatever it would go up to. So we're very, very proud to have those facilities be ADA and accessible to everyone, and it serves the whole community.
Thank you. And one reminder that I neglected to say earlier is we promised the candidates that you would be out at 8 o'clock this evening, and we're doing fine. But I did want to put that on the record that that is a promise, and we will keep it. And so now moving on, it's a pertinent question having to follow up to the one we had before. We'll start with Ms. Grupp. Radnor has 3 elementary schools that vary substantially in population and physical resources. What would you do to level the playing field?
Wow. There's 3 different schools, and they are very different. Even just the way the schools themselves act, like the administration in each school is different. What the kids expect is different, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. That sometimes having a little differences is good. They're all going to come together in middle school. They're all going to be there together all the way to high school if they continue with their public education. I don't think everything needs to be exactly the same, even. I think there is room in this world for individualism, and as long as there's no one being left behind, and that it's not a problem to have those differences.
Thank you very much. Ms. Lau?
So with the new ITHM project, I think the current school board is addressing that issue. They commissioned a feasibility study, as Ms. Duffy mentioned. It no longer made sense to just pour money down the drain by trying to prop up aging infrastructure. It's actually money is much better spent building a new ITHM elementary, and I think many people in the community would probably agree that it's long overdue. So hopefully, once that project is completed, we will bring ITHM up to the kind of physical standard of the other two elementary schools. And then I believe the district is also due either next year or the year after to redistrict school boundaries. So that will address any population inequities that are currently in existence. And again, it's time to do that as well, because I would imagine the new Ithan Elementary will probably have a bigger capacity and can accommodate more students. So we actually live in an area that's almost equidistant between Radnor Elementary, which is where my two children went, and Ithan Elementary. And I always wondered, why were we districted to Radnor instead of Ithan? Because we could have gone either way. And I would imagine maybe my neighborhood under the new regime could be going to the brand new Ithan Elementary. Other families in my neighborhood will benefit from that. But I do think we have current policies and procedures that address that very issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Massey.
I guess I'm not exactly quite clear if you're talking about physical, structures, staffing, population numbers, and I think I'd want a little more information about that. But I think that diversity is good, as we all can appreciate. I think as long as the caliber of the education that we're providing is the same amongst the schools, to me that's a huge priority. So I think I'd want more information what you mean by leveling the playing field.
All right, Ms. Rosenblum.
Jannie, I hate to echo Jannie's remarks again, but Ithan Elementary is addressing that very issue. And from what I understand, they're making it will be equipped to house 750 students. And from what I understand, will also allow for additional classrooms if that's needed in the future. Redistricting will also be an issue that comes up and something that the school board will need to address as we learn of the populations rising up from the growing neighbors in Radnor. Thanks.
Mr. Thornton.
Thank you. So I love the individual character of each elementary school and how it rolls beautifully into middle school and high school. However, there are some structural needs that the comprehensive plan has identified. I think starting with the Ithan rebuild will give us opportunities to address staffing needs and students' population needs, and then allow us to take a look at the other facilities to make sure that they offer the same opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Duffy?
Okay, well, I'd say first and foremost, what's probably most important is that the quality of education is the same amongst all the buildings. Now, whether they have a slightly separate spirit or character to the building, and I think they embrace that. Each community embraces that, those distinctions. They mention it, the dirty word redistricting. No school board wants to deal with redistricting. It's but Dr. Batchelor has been very transparent in the fact that we may need to consider it in the building of the new Ithan Elementary. When we built Radnor Elementary, we entered an agreement with the Township, with the office park, and with the school district, and we are limited in how we can expand that building. In fact, we can't expand that building. So there are some internal classrooms currently being used, and that can ebb and flow based on class size. The district has commissioned a population study, and we've heard mixed reviews. But if what we see around us is a lot of building in the township. And it did happen in Lower Merion where they had a population explosion and they built an entirely new school. So we are building Ithan with an eye on the future. What we need to be prepared should that happen to Radnor, that we can house it. And in that case, we may, in fact, be faced with that dirty R word and actually moving some students over to Ithan Elementary. Thank you.
where am I now?
Cheryl
Ms. Gibson.
Yes. Yeah, I have to echo that what I believe is important is that children have the same educational experience and the same quality of education, and that should be consistent no matter what building they're in. And given that they share a curriculum, that should be the case. Now, the actual buildings, obviously, you have 3 different buildings, and they're going to have differences unless you built the same building 3 times at the same time, exactly. And I have to also agree that those buildings, I found the differences in character intriguing for as long as I've lived in Radnor. Well, originally, Ithan was very different from Wayne. But then when Radnor came along, Radnor Elementary, then we took that mix. So I was actually on the board for that redistricting, and we sort of created what we thought was a meld of the two. But I think the distinct character is nice, and then they do all bring that together in the middle school. But the critical piece is the educational piece, and that would be consistent from building to building.
Thank you very much. Ms. Girton?
Aren't we fortunate here in Radnor to have what I consider a family of excellent elementary schools where they offer terrific education? Yes, they're all different. That's what makes it wonderful, because they are, Radnor Elementary does a 5th grade play. Wayne does a different kind of activity, and Ithan as well. They all have their unique, diverse personalities, and it makes it for a fantastically rich district in more ways than just the physical structures of the elementary schools. I think it's great that we have made it the foresight to see that we need to make some improvements to Ithan, build a new Ithan, because it's time.
Thank you. And finally, Mr. Grupp.
So the question was how to level the playing field across the 3 schools. I believe the playing field is level. We are the Township of Radnor. It is the same curriculum. It's the same school district. Everyone spoke to the differences in physical properties and infrastructure, and that's been well noted for a very long time. I would just say, as long as the resources between teachers, aides, DCIU and early intervention, as long as that is available to all students at all 3 schools, I think we're in a good spot.
Thank you very much. And now moving on. Yeah. Okay, I think I will tell y'all that we solicited candidates online, questions online, and so we do have some redundancy, as you would expect. And so the one advantage to these questions is they're nicely written. So I'm going to move on, and we're going to start with Ms. Lau. Many school districts have reduced expenses by contracting out services such as those that provide busing, custodial care, and food preparation. Some even use services to hire their aides and classroom support workers. What do you think of this idea and why?
Well, it's my understanding that Radnor School District currently does some of that as well. And again, I would say as a school board member, I would evaluate, each proposal, each opportunity or alternative on its merits and see if there are opportunities to be efficient, to save taxpayer money, to spend our money wisely. So I can't say that I have a hard and fast rule like, yes, we would always do that, or no, we would never do that. I think it just depends on what it is that you're talking about. I think certain services lend themselves much more easily to outsourcing, and others, I think there's just a personal touch, that, we would prefer to keep in-house. It just really depends on what you're talking about. So I think it's hard to come up with a general rule, but as with all decisions that would come before the board, my approach would be to evaluate each one and come with an open mind, not come with any preset notions as to what might be best, because there are always exceptions. And so I think that would be kind of my approach to almost any decision, but certainly one like this where I think it really depends on exactly the kind of service you're talking about.
Oh, thank you very much, Ms. Massey.
I think cutting cost, as long as quality stays where it should be, is an okay thing to do. I think, that's just part of being, running an efficient business per se. So I guess my stance is as long as you're not, sacrificing quality and it doesn't impact the students and the teachers, then I don't see why there'd be a huge issue with it. But certainly each situation should be reviewed, and all options should be considered.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rosenblum.
So we do provide a lot of that in-house. In fact, the transportation we provide not only to our Radnor public schools, but we provide them for the schools in the district. That said, I think we would have to evaluate each one individually, look at the funding that is provided, and our budget, and I think we go from there. And we also should take advice from our superintendent and his administration that we hire.
Thank you very much. Mr. Thornton?
I think providing a quality education sometimes requires diverse partnerships. There's certainly opportunities to work with outside organizations, but I also think that the most important thing is to maintain a high level of quality and efficiency and evaluate each of those opportunities on the merits. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Duffy?
I'd say many of those services are in-house. And at Radnor, one of our priorities has been really to create a culture of belonging for all employees. And that's really served us well right now. For instance, we mentioned our transportation is in-house. We have not, there is a great transportation shortage. There is a shortage of bus drivers. And you probably read in the news where there are some districts that have canceled activities. In fact, I think it was one of our neighboring districts, a sports team couldn't attend an event or a band because they didn't have bus drivers. We have fortunately not had that problem in Radnor, and I think it is because we have created, this climate where we can attract and retain these necessary services. So, and we do contract at times. We are contracting with Lakeside, which is, we use mental health clinicians that, because of the increased need of student mental health and needs in the school buildings, we contract when it makes sense. So I think we'll always be evaluating, but it's not just, and we think about cost effectiveness, but it's also about making sure we have the resources when, they are scarce in the community. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Gibson?
I agree that the decision would have to be situational. There are times when contracting out does make sense, and you're not doing so at a sacrifice of quality, and it can sometimes be cost effective. So it would have to be examined on a case-by-case basis.
Thank you. Ms. Girton?
I agree that these issues would have to be considered on a case-at-case basis. I attended a few of the finance meetings over during the spring, and I was so impressed with the way this administration, with the board's support and help, sharpened their pencils and worked on that budget. So where things make sense, I think we would have to be completely open-minded as to the best way to make a budget be effective for every student, employee, staff, et cetera, teacher.
Thank you. Mr. Grupp?
I'd have to agree with Ms. Duffy as an end user, or my children are end users. How Radnor does it is very well. As everyone else stated, if there is a way to save money, that should be examined. But to speak about food service and transportation, you go to these big food service industries, Sodexo, Chartwells, and then the transportation companies. Cost savings there would probably be negligible. So to sit there and hem and haw over pennies, I don't think is effective for anyone or time-worthy. But if it needs to be looked at, it'll be looked at on a case-by-case basis.
Thank you. And finally, Ms. Grupp?
There's a lot of different avenues for cost savings, and I think that there's value in looking into those. But I think it comes down to the value for your dollar and the quality that you're going to get. And you can't make a broad generalization and say no contractors or all contractors. I think it really comes down to each individual type of contract and how you're going to farm that out, and then what the feedback is. And is it working for us as a community, or is what we're doing, like you said, the transportation is amazing and they are here. I mean, we've had the same bus driver for 3 years, so you get to know them. And that's nice to know that this is just not a random person who's here for a couple months and might never see them again. You know, so I can't sit here and say I'm all for it or all against it. It would come down to each contract and what's the best for us as a community.
Perfect. So now I am going to raise a poll to the candidates. I promised we'd be out of here at 8. We have 2 more questions that we can answer, which will take us to probably 8:10. Do we do that, or do we do one more question and then? You think we can? You guys ready? All right. We're starting with Miss Massey. These ought to be easy. Okay. No interruptions back there. Okay. If you had a magic wand that would remedy a current problem in Pennsylvania, what problem in the Radnor schools would you solve and why?
Personally, I would strive for children to not use social media. I think it's rotting their minds. I have a 16-year-old who is not on any social media at all, never has, and has zero interest in it. She reads, she's with her family, she's engaged, she can speak to adults better than I can. She could do better tonight than I can. So I believe that somehow getting rid of social media in our schools would be a huge benefit.
Thank you very much. Ms. Rosenblum?
I don't think I have one specific problem that I would address. I think the problems are ever evolving, and I think the school board faces them with good governance and follows policy. And yeah, I think the track record for as long as I've been here has given the school board all the distinctions that they have today. So I really don't have anything that I would address directly right now, but I think we're eager to learn and tackle as they come along.
Thank you. Mr. Thornton?
So I agree with Lon, and I think we're in a fortunate position that we don't have problems, but I think there are opportunities to improve. And I think one area that we agree as a slate that we want to improve, and we have done some great things in the past, is increasing our diversity, equity, inclusion. We want to make sure that every child feels at home within the school. I have a child with special needs, and her path is different, and want to make sure that her and her friends feel a part of the school as my son who played basketball did. So I really think inclusion is an opportunity that we can always continually to improve, and that's something, if I had a magic wand, I would wait for that. Thank you.
Okay, I have 2, and I think the first is funding, that all schools in Pennsylvania could be as well funded as they are here in Radnor. You see what can happen, the magic that happens when a school is well funded, and I would wish that that would be afforded on all students of Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, our state ranks as one of the lowest contributors. I think we're probably 48th in the nation for what the state contributes. So that means that we rely incredibly heavily on our local tax base. And you can tell just by saying that that's inherently unfair. And then my next would be the educational shortage. State certification for teaching are down 60% in the last decade. And, I've had the great privilege during COVID to be up front and close to our educators and their extraordinary dedication and commitment. And it is such a worthwhile profession, and I I hope we do more in our schools to teach our students or show them how positive a career choice this could be, because they really have they really are making an impact in our children's lives. And I hope we can shine the light on them and bring more people to the profession. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Gibson?
All right, so I feel like my answer is rather esoteric, but you did say magic, so I guess that means I'm entitled. I guess what I would do is I would have everyone be a little bit kinder to each other, because as a teacher, I always felt firmly that a happy child was a child who learned. And when a child felt comfortable in the classroom and felt supported by the others, that they were going to be a better learner and they were going to go home a happier child. So that would be my wish.
Thank you. Ms. Girton?
If I had a magic wand, I would like to see all of our discourse and discussion in community affairs and problem solving, and be it in school districts or Board of Commissioners, wherever you want to be, in the state, the Senate, the House, all the way up. I'd like to see the temperature be one of more space for actual civic discussion rather than point and counterpoint.
Mr. Grupp?
Magic wand, I would like to see a lot more students get engaged in the trades. Oh, are you going to use that one?
I was.
Oh. You know, I have a college degree, four-year degree in engineering, but I work with my hands every day. We have 15 talented employees that work with their hands every day, making six-figure wages, some people making $200,000 a year, our employees. Education in Radnor is fantastic. The athletics in Radnor is fantastic. There is a trades program in the school, and I believe there's 39 children involved in it. So, right, 39?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're really just.
I would like to see that. You know, you can, if you can make something with your hands, do that. Then I can always go become a design engineer. I had my brother was one of our employees. He just quit his six-figure job because he goes, I'm gonna go sit behind a desk. He turned 40. He goes, I can't do it anymore, and he's gonna go be a design engineer. To have the background that Radnor will give you, the community, the education, and then to take a trade skill with you in life, I think is a great thing to have.
Just the rules, you can expand on that.
I am going to.
There's nothing wrong with that, Ms. Grupp.
So I think that if I had a magic wand, and even going back to when I was in elementary, middle school, and high school, is I would let everyone see two paths they could take all the way out, so that all students would see that there's more than one way of living a good life. You might go into trades and become a welder and live a very nice life, or you might go become a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. There's no wrong path. And I think that we shouldn't push everyone into the college and postgraduate programs, because we don't need everyone to have those types of degrees. We need someone for every job. And that's what I would say.
Thank you very much. Ms. Lau?
So it's my turn to echo Mr. Thornton. You know, if I had a magic wand, it would be if any student, any employee felt like they didn't belong in our school district for any reason, felt like their dignity and self-worth were not being recognized by the other people they interact with in our school district, in our community, I would want to use my magic wand to make that all go away for them immediately. I don't have a magic wand, but what we do have is a school board, and we do have district-wide initiatives. And I'm very appreciative of the fact that we have tackled this issue and that we have the Belonging Initiative. And I think it's a good first step. And, I was looking at our comprehensive plan, which is for the years 2021 and 2024, and I was just struck by how much we've actually accomplished already, and it's only 2023. So we can do hard things. And as a school board, I think we should do hard things because we certainly are not lacking in resources. And we're called upon to make tough decisions to, yes, tackle challenges that everyone will tell you, right? Everyone has a problem meeting, the goals that we set for ourselves, especially when it comes to DEI. So, but I think it's worth trying, right? We are all worth this effort. So, we don't need a magic wand. All we need is our commitment and ourselves and our dedication to this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. And we started with Ms. Massey, so now moving on to, well, my goodness, this is going to be our final question, and you will get to start the closing statements. It did work out perfectly. So, Ms. Rosenblum, to start, the Pennsylvania legislature impacts what happens in our public schools. If you were to advocate, what would you tell them to do and why?
I'm sorry, before she answers, could you repeat that one more time,
Yes,
please?
I would be delighted to. The Pennsylvania legislature impacts what happens in our public schools. If you were to advocate, what would you tell them to do and why? What would you ask the legislature to do and why? And if it's not to raise taxes or to build new roads or whatever, that's okay. I'm just filling time here.
Yeah, you know what? That question is very multifaceted, I have to say. There's lots of different areas you can go with in that question. So if they would have to make a decision and something that we're not, and I assume this is for all public schools, not just for Radnor Township, or
Our public schools,
for all public schools?
in our public schools, I guess.
In-
All right, let me try again. The legislator votes on everything, and so. I'm sorry. Thank you very much. The legislature votes on everything having to do with our public schools. If you were to advocate for something for them to do, what would that be and why?
Okay, so that would pertain to all public schools then. I think if, and this is raising, so where I feel passionate about is really the health and wellness of the student's mind, especially coming out of the COVID years. So if legislature were to come down and to, I would propose, making sure that students are supported with counselors, enough counselors in the school districts. And it is something that Radnor has been doing. We've increased the counselors at the high school and have added the college counselors. And by doing that, it not only helps them through the process, but it also reduces the level of anxiety among the students. And we all know when we reduce that level of anxiety and we create a safe environment for them, that is the best way for them to achieve success.
Thank you very much. Mr. Thornton?
As I mentioned earlier, I work for a nonprofit in Philadelphia that's focused on economic and community development. I work with organizations and people who are in a school system that struggles for resources and doesn't have the same opportunities that we're fortunate to have here in Radnor. What I would love to see the legislature find a way to support those schools in Philadelphia and give those children opportunities similar to what we have here in Radnor.
Thank you very much. Ms. Duffy?
Okay, we have a theme here. I'm going to go back to funding. I'd like them to increase general education funding, and it would address things like Ms. Rosenblum said, so we can invest in social emotional wellness, that we have a drastic increase in special education fund needs. I'd like them to fund the mandates they hand down. We have mandates that are that they hand down, and then they don't give us money to fund them. So it's all about funding, and as we've mentioned some in this, is to fund the inequities that happen when you rely too heavily on a local tax base, because all our children are worth it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gibson.
Mine would also be funding mandates. The state does require a lot of school districts, and often those requirements do not have dollars attached. So mine would be that when those requirements come down for school districts, that the dollars come with it as well.
Ms. Girton?
I agree with the funding mandates, and especially in Pennsylvania. When you think about Pennsylvania, I don't know the exact number, but recently they've said that we were ranked in the last 40 to 50 states in funding and investment in public education. So Pennsylvania ranks very low in funding in all 50 states in America. So I would really like to see the Pennsylvania legislature focus on those needs for public education all across the state.
Thank you, Mr. Grupp.
If we're asking the statewide legislature to make a decision, I would say, let's ask them not to make a decision that affects, 1,000 different school districts differently. If they would just set the standard and let the local school districts carry it out, I think a lot of problems would disappear.
Ms. Grupp?
I would have to agree with the funding. It would be nice if they wouldn't pass all these mandates and requirements that then we have to be carried with the burden for. It would be, but if we increase the funding, it's going to increase our burden. So I think that there's a lot of different ways to address the mandates, and if they made them more open-ended without such rigorous points, it could be beneficial to all students across the state.
Ms. Lau?
So I have to also say, please fund public education in Pennsylvania. Currently, local taxes account for 84% of our school budget, and state sources account for a mere 14% of our budget. So the inequity, that perpetuates throughout our Commonwealth is egregious in my mind. And they are delinquent in their responsibility because, education, having a well-educated citizenry and electorate is a bedrock of our American democracy. You cannot have a well-functioning democracy without well-educated citizens. So I don't know how we got to this place where we're 48th in the nation out of 50 states. I think we recently dropped even further. I think it used to be 46, right? And so, again, this is what I would use my magic wand to do, is get our state legislators to agree that we need more funds for education. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Ms. Massey?
I think I would echo all of those things, but maybe, funding toward paying our teachers better would be one of those requirements that I would like to see. I think that, they work really, really hard, and I don't think that they're reimbursed for the amount of hard work that they do as well as they should be. So I think it would be to help the teachers feel that reward as well.
Thank you very much. And now I'm going to allow everybody to prepare for the closing statements, which will be coming next. I will admit to you that I was raised by a public school teacher, and I'm sure if we raised our hands in the room, there's probably a heck of a lot of us that were raised by public school teachers, and so we love them. And as I said earlier, I learn a lot, and I hesitate to think that we've got a lot of citizens and voters out there that really don't understand a lot about our school system. So hopefully they'll afford themselves of that. I do want to encourage everybody to join the Radnor League of Women Voters. As Ms. Massey said earlier, we just recently had a very interesting speaker on social media and what that can do to the kids of today. And forgive me for using this, I will put it away. I finally made it quit making noise. But what it can do for the kids of the day. And so we're trying to keep up with some of the more recent things as we move along. And now, moving into our closing statements, we'll start with Mr. Thornton.
Thank you. In my opening statement, I mentioned that this Democratic slate is invested, engaged, and ready to serve. I think clearly from the responses that you heard tonight that that's absolutely true. We care deeply about all Radnor students, and if elected, we'll work tirelessly to support safe, supportive, and inclusive environments for all Radnor students. We understand the importance of ongoing community support and transparency in government. Liz Duffy, Clare Girton, Jannie Lau, and Lon Rosenblum and I are ready to serve the community as school board members. Thank you again for your time and your thoughtful questions. It has been a pleasure sharing our qualifications with you tonight.
Thank you very much, Ms. Duffy.
Well, thank you to the League for hosting this important forum. It has been a great privilege and responsibility to serve in the Radnor School Board for the last 4 years. I hope my service through some extraordinary times has demonstrated my immense commitment to this district and the well-being of our students. I have always come to meetings well prepared and ready to listen. I have sought community input and made decisions that I felt were best in the interest of our greater community rather than simply on my own opinion. I have treated everyone with respect, regardless of whether I agreed with them or not, and I take my responsibility to our taxpayers with the utmost importance. For the past 8 months, I've worked closely with my slate mates Clare Girton, Jannie Lau, Lon Rosenblum, and DJ Thornton. They are smart, compassionate people who are highly invested in our schools, engaged in our community, and have demonstrated a readiness to serve by having already participated in school board candidate training. If our campaign has been an audition to the kind of school board members they'll be, I couldn't be more confident in their ability to serve. In addition to bringing new perspectives and skills, they are active and open-minded listeners, eager to learn, collaborative, and always respectful. I humbly ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gibson.
I believe a wide perspective is the best tool that a school board member can bring to a school board. That's because a broad lens most likely leads to sound decision-making. I believe a community can expect from a school board member that they listen as much as possible, that they learn as much as possible, and that they ask the questions that are necessary in order to fully understand the issues at hand. To my mind, balance and fair-mindedness are critical in leading to positive decisions. And in order to keep Radnor School District continuing to operate from a position of strength, those are the qualities I'd advocate.
Thank you, Ms. Girton.
Thank you again for the time here tonight and all the thoughtful questions. Really appreciate it. It's been a great experience for me. I'm so proud of this Democratic slate of Liz Duffy, Jannie Lau, Lon Rosenblum, and DJ Thornton. As you can see from the comments that we've made, that we are ready to serve. We are prepared. We came together 6 months ago, and since that time, together as a team, we've engaged in school board candidacy training. We've attended school board meetings, we've read agendas, we've reviewed initiatives, and we've asked a whole lot of questions. There's a lot more to learn, and I'm really excited for the next chapter, and I'm really appreciate this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Grupp. Mr. Grupp, excuse me.
Thank you for having us here tonight. Thank you to everyone sitting here. Everyone's candor is greatly appreciated, and I think the community is appreciative of it. I'm appreciative of it. It was great getting to get everyone's perspective on how to carry out, and then Ms. Duffy, your 4 years of service. And I thank you for that, you know, what our children have now. I'd just like to say that if elected to the school board, three things in every decision that I would think about. Students, family, and community. If all three of those aren't affected in a positive way, you should probably rethink the decision. Because if everyone isn't happy in the community, that's going to trickle down to the family and to the individual student. But if everyone is happy, we'll nurture that or continue to nurture what we currently have in the Radnor School District.
Thank you. Ms. Grupp?
Thank you to everyone for coming out here on this Friday night. I came here as a daughter of a retired teacher, so I understand how much a school board can affect the employees of a school district. My neighbors a majority of them are people who do not have kids in the schools right now. Our babysitters are from Radnor High School. One of my best friends teaches at the middle school, and our sons go to the elementary school. I think having that perspective will be very important to the school board, and being a business owner is another part that will help me in making the decisions as a school board member. Thank you again, and good night.
Thank you. Ms. Lau?
I'd like to thank the League for hosting this wonderful event, my fellow candidates for participating, and the voters out there for tuning in. I hope our answers tonight will be helpful when you fill out your mail-in ballots or head to the polls on November 7th. I believe that my training as a lawyer and as a corporate executive, in addition to my service on multiple nonprofit boards, will serve me well if I am lucky enough to be elected to the Radnor School Board. In my opinion, the current board has done an incredible job, often under the most difficult of circumstances. And it is no coincidence that Radnor has been rated the #1 school district in all of Pennsylvania for the past 4 years in a row. I am proud to be part of a slate that is committed to continuing their good work. And so I ask for your vote on behalf of Liz Duffy, Clare Girton, Lon Rosenblum, and DJ Thornton, and me, Jannie Lau. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Massey?
Thank you all for coming tonight, and thank you for listening. While I recognize my learning curve is very steep for this position, I am very interested. And I am a registered Republican, but I really don't see this as a political job. I see this as a service to my community, the students, and everyone that lives in this community. I think our top priority is to prepare our students for academic and personal excellence in their life, for whatever that means for them. So I would be honored to be a part of the school board and to learn everything that I need to learn to be successful for you all. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Ms. Rosenblum.
Thank you again to the League of Women Voters and the audience and the candidates. If elected, I would be honored and thrilled to work alongside a team of passionate, talented leaders who share the same goals I have to continue supporting the ever-evolving needs of our students, staff, and administration through collaboration, respect for one another, and an open mind. I feel confident my school district and professional knowledge and experience gained over the past 15 years will bring valuable insight as these efforts are navigated. I also feel confident in the members of my slate who have worked together for many months in preparation for a school director's seat, but who I've also known for many years. For Liz Duffy, Clare Girton, Jannie Lau, DJ Thornton, and myself, Lon Rosenblum, I hope we can count on your vote on November 7th. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much to every candidate for showing up. Like, I forget exactly who said it is a Friday night. For those of you that are not in the audience, it is a Friday night, and we thank the school district once again for videotaping this. And just a reminder, it will be on the League's YouTube channel and on Mainline TV network so that we can all see this again. And let's thank the candidates. Good evening to everyone.
That's not good. I'm like, why am I chattering?